Hi, my name is Bob and I'm renovating this 1973 Egg Harbor Sportfish boat. Well, hello, welcome to Renovation Sportfish. This is episode 20. If you haven't seen any of my videos, or it's the first one, or you haven't been to the channel, we're actually in 2019 and I'm going over projects from 2016. I didn't originally plan on being on YouTube, so I didn't really film back then. So I just have to use photos and descriptions to kind of tell the story of how I got to this point. So anyways, let's start with the first project of this part of 2016. Okay, I'm going to break a little bit with tradition here and show a finished product before I show the actual construction of it. And just spice things up a little bit and whatever. So what we're talking about here is this little, I call it a wing wall. I rebuilt this. This is the main bulkhead behind me here I'm leaning up against. And as you can see, it's already got the trim on it and it's already been painted and everything here. But what I want to show is how I got to this point. The original was just a piece of laminate, white laminate. There was no trim on it. It was a piece of metal screwed to it, stainless steel, just to keep you from whacking it, I guess. But it was just, yeah, it was just a piece of white countertop laminate glued to it. It was a piece of wood trim down in this lower area. I'm not going to have the wood trim. It also came to a point on this end. And I kind of lopped it off here, and I did that so that I could bring there's a ladder that comes down to get you up onto the side decks, and I wanted to bring that closer to the bulkhead so that you can utilize the guardrails that I installed in the last episode as a handhold to get up onto the side deck as well. And I'll probably show something about that later on when I put the guardrails, show the actual install of the guardrails. But it's about this little wing wall here right now. So you're going to see me laying out some pieces of wood, trying to figure out what I wanted to actually do here. Now it ended up being, well, it's a solid mahogany here, and this is 1/4 inch marine grade plywood, all pre-fiberglassed. And then this is a piece of mahogany down here, and this was pre-fiberglassed as well. So you'll see me fiberglassing this main piece here, and then I install these pieces. Now on the other side of this wall is the air intake and the air scoop to bring fresh air down to the engines, which I'm kind of sitting on one right now. And so I redid that area as well, and if you watched some of the real early episodes, you know how bad that was. They usually, the base for that scoop was a piece of teak screwed down on top of the teak cover boards along the cockpit. And it was all rotting away. I couldn't really reuse it. It looked kind of neat, but I kind of wanted to make it a little more less maintenance. I didn't want to be pulling that scoop off to revarnish things. So I made it out of 2 layers of 3/4 inch marine grade plywood and epoxied them together, shaped them, pre-fiberglassed them, and then installed them. So that's what you're going to see over here. Now it took quite a bit of time to figure out what I was going to do here and on the other side, and I think in the end it came out pretty good. So we'll show you what's going on the other side of this. Of course I did it on the starboard side as well, sport side, and yeah, we'll get into the photographs of how I actually got there. I'm not going to show the painting right now, but it's just the construction and installation of those pieces. Okay, what you're seeing here is the air scoop area on the port side. Now, trying really not to show too much here. The wood you're seeing here is part of the shrink wrap support system, but that's where the air scoop would be mounted onto that. And here you can see the new shaped plywood pieces I put in connect into the mahogany piece that wraps around here. You'll see that when I'm doing the construction. So yeah, it's all filleted, like all these joints are filleted everywhere, except for where wood meets wood. I mean, varnished wood meets painted wood. I didn't put fillets in those areas. Anyways, now you can see the construction. Okay, for this project, we're actually back in the boat. We're on the starboard side. This is kind of the galley area. And talking about this piece of trim. This piece above here, we're going to get into later in the episode. That's the actual window trim. And below it, this is the bottom of the window channel where the actual side window sits. And then you have this piece of trim I added. And then here, this is the original side window piece up to about this point. I don't know if you can see here, but there's a joint right here. And from here back is where I cut out and replaced. And this is actually part of the wing walls we were just looking at on the other side of the main bulkhead here behind me. So like I said, this is starboard side. And the issue from the factory that was on this boat was this piece here goes all the way up past the bottom of the window channel. Probably comes up to about this part right here on the other side of this piece of trim. And it was actually two pieces they did. It was tongue and groove, probably right around in this area. And that joint was separated the entire length on both sides. I didn't build this piece that way. And you can look at an old episode and when I was taking things apart and see how I repaired the original part. But I thought it would be a good idea to add a piece of trim over that joint the whole way to kind of reinforce it so it doesn't try to pull apart again, just in case my fix didn't really work good. So I added this piece. Now, this piece is not a consistent width the entire way. Tapers as it gets to the front, and then I added a bigger piece, which you're going to see in the photos where the cabinet goes in the front there, because the cabinets are kind of bolted or screwed into this whole contraption here. But in this area, you can see, maybe you can't see, but there's a screw here, a screw up here. So the joint is like right in between, and this is all epoxied in and screwed in, and it really reinforces that joint. It also helps support the window channel piece, which just kind of comes out here and has a lot of force on it, I think, from the window and the roof, and it's a pretty long piece of wood here, as you're going to see in the photographs. So it does a couple things for the boat, I think, without adding a lot of weight, especially in this area. There's nothing supporting any of this from the bulkhead all the way up to the cabinets, and it's probably a good 12-foot long piece. Now on this side where the galley is, I had to cut this piece of trim because at the time I didn't take out all the galley. I since have taken it out, so wish I would have thought of that earlier, but I didn't. And so I had to cut this piece to get it in. So there's a joint right up in front of us here that I'll show in a minute. And you'll see it probably in the photographs too. So that's what you're going to see, photos of this right now and the installation. So here's that joint I was just talking about where the galley was. This was part of the galley I don't know, support system. It was tied into the hull right here, tabbed in, and you can see where I put this whole piece in. I never even stained it because this piece of wood was sitting in front of this, and you'll see that in the pictures. But so there's going to be the same piece is going to kind of go back there, one very similar. So I haven't done anything with this yet, but that's going to be way in the future when I start putting the galley back together. And so I figured I might as well show this too. Now this is where it comes up and it comes into the cabinet. I'm not going to show the cabinet because I'm going to have that in another episode, so I rebuilt them. But this is where it transitions. You can see it's a lot narrower here, and transition, I made this little wider piece that transitions, and this goes forward all the way into the cabinet. The cabinet's attached to that. before I went any further with putting more of the trim on the windows, I wanted to fit all the side windows, the windshield, and actually this window behind me here. This is into the main bulkhead. And so I'm just fitting all these channels now. In episode 2, I went into a discussion, I believe it was episode 2, about the windows and removing them. And this is actually a piece of the new channel. This is actually, I have them labeled. I labeled all of them, so when I put them in, it'll be easy. This is the port front, has the up on it. I've already got the screws in it and everything's ready to go. So you're going to see me just fitting all these channels in the actual windows, make sure they fit in the openings. And I had to do a little bit of modifications to the openings to get them to make sure they fit well. Yeah, that's what you're going to see here. Okay, so this next project we're talking about, we're back in this galley area. It's all this window trim here. And we'll start off with just this back here. This is a piece of mahogany plywood veneer, I call it. Same thing I did on the bulkhead here, which I showed in another previous episode. I put it on here too. The factory for this area just had a piece of white laminate attached on here. But I wanted to put this on here because this piece behind it is made up of many pieces of wood, a lot of joints, and I thought this would help hold it together a little bit better, give it a little more strength. The only thing I'm not a huge fan about is just the mahogany against mahogany with all this ribbon striping. It's a bit much. The factory did have a piece of trim in this corner, so I'm probably going to put something like a piece of trim in this corner just to break it up a little bit. And so this is the first thing you're going to see. Then we'll get into the window trim itself, and I'll show some close-ups of this joint right here. The factory had those 4 pieces. I explained all that in an original video when I was pulling all this off. But I joined the 2 side pieces and the lower piece right here with a joint. Because this is what keeps the water from coming in the boat, you know. So I wanted this all to be in one piece. So I installed this all as one piece, and then the top is, which you can't see here, is removable, just to get the window in and out. So we'll check out some pictures of that. Okay, so here's the joint I'm talking about, and it's a little bright light coming in here, but maybe you can see it okay. But yeah, so this joint, this is at the back end of it. Here's the vertical piece and then the lower piece, and like all my window joinery, which is totally unconventional, I always bring the bottom piece up a little bit. I've done it on all the windows, so I tried to keep that same theme. You can see it here in this back window. I did the same thing. I did it in the windshield. I just do it everywhere, and it's just kind of a little signature thing I've been doing on this boat. And so I did the same thing on the side here. So it's a pretty tight joint. Came out good. It's all epoxied and biscuited together, like all the joints I do on these. Okay, so we'll just move up this aft piece on the starboard side here. And now we come to the top. Now here's the top piece. This is the removable piece I've talked about. Here's one of the screws. Factory did it the same basic way. They use those screws with the finish washers to install it. You can see the joint. Yeah, so this whole top piece here is removable to get the window in and out. Okay, so this next little project was just installing a little piece of trim where the windshield came down and met the deck. Right in there was a kind of a epoxy fillet that you could see, and I wanted to cover that up and not have some weird little corner. So I made this little piece of trim. It was kind of triangular shaped. Just put it in there with epoxy, and a couple little pieces kind of you're going to see at the main center post. For the same reason, just to do something in that corner to make it look a little better. So just got a couple photos of that. Then we're going to go into the exterior trim on the main bulkhead window, and I'm going to show a little bit about installing that. We showed fabricating it in the last episode, and now we're installing it. Okay, here we are looking at the exterior bulkhead window trim that I'm going to show installation of. And from the factory, there was like a notch right here that you see in this photo I'm showing. And that was to drain the channel out, because there's no way to drain this channel. Well, I didn't want to have a notch here. So one of the things I just wanted to point out before I show the pictures of this was how I'm draining the actual channel. And so we'll look at it here from the outside, and hopefully you can see what I'm talking about. And you can see right under here, there's a little like half round hole, and I've got one on the other side as well, and we'll look at them from the inside just so you can see them as well. Okay, so here looking on the inside of the window channel, you can see one of the drains. This is the port side one, and so that's how I solved it. I just sanded a little groove in the back of the actual exterior window trim, and just got to make sure I keep those things clean. So this episode's getting a little long, so I think we'll wrap this up with a couple of photos of when I repainted the flybridge walls, the exterior part of the walls. Now last episode I installed those side marker little wedge pieces And there was some areas that I didn't really like too much on the sidewalls. Didn't fare it too well, a couple spots, and there was some dry patches and just mistakes I made just painting because I was still learning. And so I decided to sand it all down and just repaint it. It wasn't that big of a deal. Didn't have to go through all the primer process and everything, but it was just sanding it to 220 and repainting it all. And I think it came out a lot better. I might have actually painted it one more time after that, but whatever. Just keep trying until you get it right anyway, sometimes. But let's look at those photographs now, and then we'll wrap up this video. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. If you liked it, please give me a like. I'm actually kind of curious how people are liking it and if they're making it this far into a video. I'm not sure if they are or not, but anyways, if you give me a like, that'd be appreciated. So until next time, have a good one. And we'll see you right here on Renovation Sportfish.